I used to believe that nothing could come between my sister and me. Kyle wasn't just my sister. She was my best friend, my confidant, the one person I could trust with anything. We grew up sharing secrets under blanket forts, making pinky promises that we thought would last forever. And for the longest time, they did. But life has a way of testing the things you believe in the most. The first crack in our perfect sisterhood appeared the day I met Jonas. Kyle didn't like him. From the moment I introduced them, she was different. It wasn't just the usual sisterly protectiveness. It was something sharper, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. "He's not good for you," she said, her voice steady, almost rehearsed. I laughed it off at first. She just needed time to warm up to him, I told myself. But the warnings didn't stop. They got louder, more insistent. And soon, they weren't warnings anymore. They were demands. She wanted me to leave him, to cut him off completely. And I started to wonder, was she really trying to protect me? Or was there something else at play? Jonas noticed it too. The tension. The way Kyle watched him, her eyes lingering just a little too long. At first, he brushed it off as overprotectiveness, just like I did. But then he changed. He started avoiding certain topics, hesitating when I asked simple questions. There were messages he wouldn't open in front of me, late-night calls that he'd dismiss with a quick, "It's nothing." And suddenly, the doubt in my mind wasn't just a whisper anymore. It was a scream. Something wasn't right. I could feel it. That gut instinct, the one you try to ignore because you don't want to believe what it's telling you. But deep down, I knew. There was a truth hiding in the shadows, waiting to come to light. And I was about to find out just how deep the betrayal ran. I told myself I was overthinking it. That Kyle was just being dramatic, that Jonas was just tired. But the feeling wouldn't go away. It sat heavy in my chest, gnawed at me in quiet moments. I started watching them, not in a paranoid way, just observing. The stolen glances, the way their conversations always seemed to pause when I walked into the room. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. The air around them felt charged, like something unspoken was lurking beneath the surface. Then came the little inconsistencies. Kyle would say she hadn't talked to Jonas, but I'd see his name flash across her phone. Jonas would tell me he was home, but Kyle would mention something he did that night, something he never told me about. It was like a puzzle with pieces that didn't quite fit, and still, I clung to denial. I wanted to believe that I was wrong, that Kyle would never betray me, that Jonas, the man who held my heart, wouldn't dare to break it. But the human mind is funny, isn't it? It protects us from the things we're not ready to see, until we are. And I was getting closer. The weight of suspicion was pressing in, demanding answers. I started testing them, slipping in small questions just to watch their reactions. Kyle would get defensive, her tone too sharp, her words too carefully chosen. Jonas would laugh it off, but his eyes would dart away, his hand tightening around his phone. And the worst part? I wasn't even sure who I wanted to be lying to me less. One night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, it hit me. If there was nothing to hide, why did it feel like I was the only one in the dark? A truth I never wanted to face was creeping toward me, slow but inevitable. And soon, there would be no more pretending. I started paying attention to the way my body reacted before my mind could catch up. The tightness in my chest whenever Kyle and Jonas were in the same room. The way my stomach twisted when I caught them exchanging a glance that lasted a second too long. My instincts were screaming at me, but I kept silencing them, convincing myself that I was being irrational. But deep down, I knew. I just wasn't ready to face it. Then, there were the moments that seemed almost designed to test me. Like the time Kyle casually mentioned Jonas's favorite coffee order, something he had never told her, but something she had just known. Or the night Jonas let it slip that Kyle had texted him first, when just the day before she swore she hadn't spoken to him in weeks. Tiny cracks that, on their own, meant nothing. But together, they formed a picture I didn't want to see. I remember the exact moment when doubt turned into certainty. I was scrolling through my phone when I saw a notification pop up on Kyle's screen across the room. It was from Jonas, just his name. No preview, no context. But the way she grabbed her phone, The way she turned her body away as if shielding the screen from me, it was like a silent confession. Something was happening behind my back. And it had been happening for a long time. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding. My mind raced through every interaction, every warning sign I had ignored. The truth was right in front of me now, undeniable and cruel, but I wasn't going to fall apart. No, if Kyle and Jonas thought they could play me for a fool, they had no idea who they were dealing with. If they wanted to betray me in the dark, I would make sure the whole world saw it in the light. I don't know what hurt more, the betrayal itself or the fact that I had ignored the signs for so long. I told myself I needed proof, something undeniable. So, I waited. I watched. And when the moment came, I let the truth punch me in the gut, leaving me breathless and hollow. It happened late at night. Jonas had fallen asleep early, his phone buzzing softly on the nightstand. I wasn't the type to snoop. I hated the idea of invading someone's privacy, but something inside me, something primal, told me to look. My hands shook as I reached for his phone, my heart beat a hammer in my ears. The screen lit up, and there it was, her name. Kyle. My sister. A part of me still held on to hope, clinging to the last thread of denial. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But as I opened the messages, the ground beneath me disappeared. Photos, secret plans, words meant for lovers, not for a sister's boyfriend. Every single message was a knife, cutting deeper, leaving wounds that would never fully heal. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling the world collapse around me. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room, to wake Jonas up and demand answers. But instead, I just sat in the suffocating silence, tears burning my eyes. The sister I had trusted more than anyone, the man I had loved, both of them had looked me in the eye, lied to me, and stolen something I could never get back. And the worst part? They didn't even seem to feel guilty about it. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at those messages, letting the weight of their betrayal crush me. My hands felt numb, my breath shallow, like my body was rejecting the truth. Every word, every photo, every plan they had made behind my back, proof that this wasn't just a mistake. It was deliberate, calculated. I was never meant to find out. A cold rage settled in my chest, cutting through the grief like a blade. Kyle had spent weeks telling me Jonas wasn't good for me, that I needed to let him go. The whole time, she wasn't warning me. She was pushing me out of the way. And Jonas, the man who once swore he loved me, who made promises with his lips pressed against my skin, had been sneaking around with my own sister. I clenched my jaw, swallowing back the sob threatening to break free. They thought they had won. They thought I would never see it coming. I scrolled further, my vision blurring with unshed tears. And then, the final blow. Plans. Plans to meet up. Not just any night, but during our upcoming family vacation. My stomach twisted, a sick realization settling in. They weren't just betraying me in secret. They were planning to do it right in front of me, under the same roof as our parents, as if I was nothing. As if my pain didn't matter. Something inside me snapped. If they wanted to play games, fine. But I wasn't going to be their fool. I wasn't going to be the broken girl, crying in the dark while they got away with it. No. If they wanted this secret so badly, I was going to make sure the entire world saw it. And I wasn't going to stop until I burned their perfect little fantasy to the ground. I wiped my face, forcing my breathing to steady. No more crying, no more second-guessing. The pain was still there, raw and searing, but I wasn't going to let it paralyze me. I had spent too long ignoring my instincts, convincing myself that the people I loved would never do this to me. But love had nothing to do with this. This was about control, about deceit. And now, it was about justice. I placed Jonas's phone back where it was, careful not to leave a trace. If he woke up, if he saw any sign that I knew, he'd twist the truth, make me doubt myself, lie straight to my face like he had been doing all along. No, I needed to be smarter. I needed to play the part of the clueless girlfriend just a little longer. And Kyle, God, Kyle, she wouldn't see it coming. She had always been the one who thought she was smarter, more in control. She had spent years pretending to be my protector, my guide. But now I saw her for who she really was. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing with possibilities. I could confront them now, scream, throw things, demand answers. But that would give them an escape. No, they deserved worse. They deserved to feel the fear I felt when I read those messages, to feel exposed, helpless, and I knew exactly when and where I'd make that happen. The family vacation, the place where they thought they could get away with it, hide behind laughter and forced innocence. They wouldn't be expecting a thing. But when the time was right, when the moment was perfect, I would rip their lies apart in front of everyone. And I wouldn't stop until they were drowning in the consequences of what they had done. The hardest part was pretending. Waking up the next morning, knowing what I knew, and still smiling. Looking at Kyle without letting my hatred show. Kissing Jonas like I hadn't spent the night staring at his betrayal in cold, undeniable proof. But I had to be careful. If I played my cards right, they wouldn't suspect a thing. I spent the next few days observing them, letting them believe they were safe. Kyle still gave me her fake concern, still acted like she was the protective sister trying to save me from a man who wasn't good enough. And Jonas? He was more affectionate than ever, almost as if he was overcompensating, as if deep down he feared that I might know. Good. Let him worry. Let them both think they were still in control. I needed proof, more than screenshots, more than a gut feeling. Something so undeniable that when the moment came, they wouldn't be able to talk their way out of it. So I started setting the trap. I played the doting girlfriend, making Jonas comfortable enough to keep slipping. I asked Kyle for advice like I always had, pretending I still trusted her. Every moment, every conversation, was another piece of my plan falling into place. And then, the perfect opportunity arrived. The family vacation was just a week away. A cozy cabin, isolated but not too far from civilization. A place filled with nostalgia, childhood memories, and now, the site of their downfall. They thought it would be their escape. Instead, it would be their reckoning. Every great downfall starts with a sense of security. I needed Kyle and Jonas to feel untouchable, to believe they had outsmarted me. So I leaned into the act, playing the part of the clueless girlfriend, the doting sister. I even let Kyle think she was getting to me, pretending to reconsider my relationship with Jonas. She ate it up, offering her support, while secretly sneaking around with him behind my back. It was sickening, but the sweeter I played, the less they suspected. I started collecting everything, screenshots, voice recordings, even snippets of their conversations when they thought I wasn't listening. I went through Jonas's laptop when he left it open, saved copies of their messages, forwarded photos to myself before deleting the evidence from his sent folder. And Kyle? She was even sloppier. She had always been confident, always believed she was the smartest person in the room. She left traces behind, subtle but enough, and I made sure to catch every single one. Then came the cameras, hidden, strategic, placed in the exact spots where I knew they'd sneak off. A few inside the cabin, one near the guest house where they planned to meet. A little insurance for when the time came. I wouldn't just expose them, I would make sure there was no escape, no way to deny what they had done. The night before the trip, I looked at myself in the mirror, almost not recognizing the woman staring back. I wasn't the same girl who had trusted them blindly. That version of me had been shattered the moment I saw those messages. But this new version, she wasn't weak. She wasn't going to cry in silence. No, she was going to make sure that when their lies came crashing down, it would be loud, undeniable, and unforgettable. By the time we arrived at the cabin, everything was set. Every detail, every contingency, planned to perfection. I had spent the entire trip acting as if nothing had changed, laughing at Jonas's jokes, letting Kyle braid my hair like she used to when we were kids. It was sickening, but necessary. They had to believe I was still blind, still the trusting fool they had taken advantage of. The first night, I watched them carefully. They played their roles well, too. Kyle, the overprotective sister, pretending to warn me about Jonas while sneaking glances at him when she thought I wasn't looking. Jonas, affectionate but distant, sneaking off for fresh air more times than I could count. I smiled to myself, knowing that the cameras were watching when I couldn't. Every lie they told, every stolen moment, was another nail in their coffin. Then I found it. Their meeting time. A hushed conversation in the kitchen when they thought I was asleep. Midnight, the guest house. My heart pounded, but not from sadness. No, this wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was anticipation. I had already arranged for my family to be in the right place at the right time, ready to witness everything. And when the moment came, I wouldn't just expose them. I would ruin them. I went to bed that night with a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. Tomorrow, the game would end. The betrayal that they thought would stay buried would be dragged into the light. And I would be the one holding the match, ready to set fire to everything they had built on lies. Midnight. The air was thick with silence, the kind that stretches before a storm. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening. I didn't have to wait long. A door creaked open, light footsteps moving across the cabin floor. Jonas. A minute later, another set. Kyle. I could almost picture them, sneaking around like guilty teenagers, thinking they were being careful, thinking they were smarter than me. I slid out of bed, moving quietly. My hands were steady, my heart calm. This wasn't a moment of hesitation, it was execution. I had spent days crafting this plan, ensuring every detail was in place. The cameras were live, the messages archived, the family waiting. All I had to do now was set everything into motion. Stepping outside, the night air was cool against my skin, but the fire inside me burned hotter. I followed at a distance, careful, deliberate. The guest house was just ahead, its dim light flickering through the windows. My grip tightened around my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. One tap, and the live feed would begin. One tap, and the perfect little illusion they had created would shatter in front of everyone. The door clicked shut behind them. They thought they were alone. They thought they were safe. I smiled, the kind of smile that comes when justice is seconds away. Then, with a deep breath, I turned and walked toward the main house, ready to summon my audience. I stepped into the main house, where my family sat unsuspecting, caught in quiet conversations and the last moments of a peaceful evening. That peace was about to be shattered. My mother looked up as I entered, her brows furrowing at my expression. I hadn't told her everything, not yet. No one knew what was coming, only that I had asked them to stay awake, that I had something important to show them. With steady hands, I reached for the remote, turning on the TV. The screen flickered to life, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the guest house feed appeared. A dimly lit room, two shadows moving inside. My father's voice broke the silence. "What is this?" I didn't answer. Instead, I watched their faces as the reality unfolded before them. My mother gasped first, her hand flying to her mouth. My father stiffened, his knuckles white as he gripped the armrest. My aunt let out a soft curse, leaning closer as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. And Kyle and Jonas? They were oblivious, wrapped up in their own little world, whispering, touching, caught in the act without a single idea that their audience had just expanded. Then, I spoke. My voice was calm, but every word was a knife. Kyle told me Jonas wasn't good for me. Turns out she was right. She just forgot to mention she was the one who deserved him less. The room was silent, heavy. The weight of betrayal settled over everyone like a suffocating fog. My mother turned to me, her eyes wide with horror, with heartbreak. My father looked away, disgust clear on his face. The truth was no longer something whispered in the dark. It was here, in front of everyone, undeniable. And now, it was time for Kyle and Jonas to face it. I turned and walked toward the guest house. My family followed. The walk to the guest house felt surreal, like stepping into the climax of a story I had written myself. Every step was deliberate, measured, each one bringing me closer to the moment I had been waiting for. Behind me, my family followed in stunned silence, their emotions a mix of rage, betrayal, and disbelief. But me? I was steady. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the reckoning. I reached the door and didn't hesitate. No knocking, no warnings. I threw it open. The sound of laughter inside died instantly. Kyle and Jonas froze, caught in a moment they couldn't escape. Jonas was standing too close, his hand still ghosting over her arm. Kyle's expression shifted from shock to something almost primal, fear. She knew. She knew this wasn't just a confrontation. This was Judgment Day. "Rose," Kyle started, but I raised a hand, silencing her. The tension in the room crackled, thick and suffocating. Jonas took a step back, his face paling as his eyes darted to the doorway where the rest of my family stood, watching. The weight of their judgment settled on his shoulders, making him shrink before my eyes. I took my time, letting the silence punish them before I spoke. My voice was cold, steady. "I hope it was worth it." Kyle's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. There was nothing left to say, nothing to defend. The evidence had already spoken for them. I turned to Jonas, my stare cutting through him. "You were so careful, weren't you? Thought you covered your tracks? Thought I was too blind, too trusting to ever find out?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You were wrong." Jonas stammered, reaching for some excuse, but I didn't care to hear it. I looked back at Kyle, my sister, the girl I had grown up with, trusted, loved. "You destroyed this," I said, my voice softer but sharper. "Not just my relationship, not just our family. You destroyed yourself." And with that, I turned and walked out. I didn't need to hear their excuses, their pathetic attempts at damage control. I had done what I came here to do. The truth was no longer hidden, and the weight of it would haunt them long after I was gone. I didn't look back. As I stepped out into the cold night air, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not satisfaction, not triumph. Just relief. Like a weight had been lifted off my chest, a poison finally drained from my veins. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Behind me, the silence in the guest house didn't last. I heard Kyle's voice, desperate, frantic, trying to explain. Jonas's muttered excuses, his pathetic attempts to salvage what couldn't be saved. Then came my father's voice, low, furious, the kind of anger that didn't need to be loud to be terrifying. My mother was crying. The sound cut through me, a reminder that I wasn't the only one they had hurt. This betrayal had shattered more than just my trust. It had fractured the very foundation of our family. I walked away from it all, letting them deal with the wreckage they had created. This wasn't my mess to clean up. Kyle had made her choices. Jonas had played his part. Now they could live with the consequences. Inside the cabin, I grabbed my bags, moving on autopilot. I didn't need to stay and watch what happened next. I already knew how this story would end. Kyle would try to justify it, twisting the narrative in a desperate attempt to save herself. Jonas would scramble for redemption, trying to crawl his way back into someone's good graces. But it wouldn't matter. Some betrayals are unforgivable. And I was done listening to liars. I didn't need to wait for my family's verdict. I already knew it. Kyle had burned every bridge, and there was no rebuilding from this. My parents had always believed in loyalty, in trust. Betrayal wasn't something you could just apologize for and move past. And what she had done, it was beyond repair. I heard my mother's voice break as she asked Kyle, "Why? Why would you do this?" But there was no answer that could make it better. There never would be. Jonas tried to follow me. I felt his presence before he even spoke, the weight of his cowardice pressing against my back. "Rose, wait." I turned before he could touch me, and the look on my face must have told him everything he needed to know. His mouth opened, but no words came out. What could he possibly say? That he was sorry? That it was a mistake? That he didn't mean for this to happen? I didn't need to hear his excuses, his regret. He hadn't regretted it while he was sneaking around, lying to my face. He only regretted it now because he had been caught. "Don't," I said, my voice calm. That seemed to unnerve him more than if I had screamed. "Whatever you think you need to say, just don't. It doesn't matter." He looked desperate now, his hands twitching at his sides. I don't care," I cut him off. "You don't exist to me anymore." That was it. That was the last thing I would ever say to him, and when I turned away, I meant it. I walked away without looking back. Not at Jonas, not at Kyle, not at the wreckage of what had once been my life. They didn't deserve my anger, my sadness, nothing. They had taken enough from me, and I refused to let them have anything more. As I stepped outside, the night air hit me, crisp and cold, but for the first time in weeks I didn't feel numb. I felt free. The pain was still there, lingering like an old wound, but it no longer controlled me. I had faced the betrayal, exposed the truth, and now I was finally letting go. My phone buzzed as I threw my bag into the car. A message from Kyle. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would say. Excuses, justifications, maybe even a plea for forgiveness. But forgiveness wasn't something I owed her. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. I hovered over the screen for a second, then deleted the message without reading it. That was the last time I would let Kyle take up space in my life. The last time I would waste energy on someone who never deserved my trust in the first place. As I pulled onto the road, I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel loss. I felt like I had finally taken back what was mine. My future. My peace. Myself. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone take that away from me again.